He ruled the Korean mafia with an iron fist. She disappeared without a word. Then she walked into his New Year's party, holding 2 babies. His babies. And he had no idea they even existed. The champagne tower glittered like a pyramid of broken promises. 32 floors above Manhattan, Kang Ji-won's penthouse hummed with New Year's Eve excess, crystal, silk, and people who smiled with their mouths but never their eyes. Everyone here owed him something. Money, loyalty, silence. He stood by the window, whiskey untouched in his hand, watching the city pretend it wasn't afraid of him. Boss? His right hand, Marcus, appeared at his shoulder. She's here. Ji-won didn't turn. And? She's not alone. That made him look. Across the marble expanse, the crowd parted like the Red Sea. Not because they recognized her, most didn't, but because she walked like she owned gravity itself. Amara. 2 years. 7 months. 13 days since she'd walked out of his life without explanation, without goodbye, without mercy. And now she stood in his doorway, wearing a gold dress that caught light like a challenge, her dark skin luminous against the winter white of everyone else's fear. But it wasn't her beauty that made the room fall silent. It was the 2 babies cradled against her chest, one in each arm, their tiny fists curled into her dress, their faces peaceful in sleep. 10 months old, maybe. Round cheeks. Black hair soft as whispered secrets. Ji-won's heart stopped, then restarted wrong. Everyone out. His voice cut through the music, the laughter, the carefully constructed normalcy of a party that was never really a party. Now. No one argued. In his world, you didn't. The exodus was swift and silent. 200 people evaporating like expensive smoke, leaving only Amara standing in the center of his empire, holding 2 pieces of a truth he suddenly couldn't breathe around. Marcus hesitated at the door. Stay, Ji-won said quietly. Then, to her, you have 10 seconds to tell me those aren't mine. Amara shifted one baby higher on her hip, and he saw it, the tiny birthmark on the boy's left wrist, identical to his own. I don't lie, Ji-won. Her voice was exactly as he remembered. Warm honey over steel. You know that. You disappeared. I survived. For 2 years, 23 months. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I counted everyone. The baby girl stirred, made a small sound against Amara's shoulder. Without thinking, Ji-won stepped forward, then stopped, suddenly aware he didn't know how to touch something this fragile without breaking it. He'd held guns since he was 14, knives since 12. He'd never held his own child. Why now? He asked. Why tonight? Amara met his gaze and he saw the exhaustion there, the kind that sleep couldn't fix. Because I'm out of options. Because they found me. And because... Her voice cracked, just barely. Because I need the one man in this world powerful enough to keep them safe. Who found you? Your uncle. The room tilted. Kang Min-seok. The man who'd raised him after his father's assassination. The man who'd taught him that love was weakness and mercy was suicide. The man who'd ordered Amara's death the moment he discovered Ji-won loved her. He knows, Ji-won said. Not a question. He knows everything. Amara's arms tightened around the twins. He wants them, Ji-won. He wants to raise them the way he raised you. Turn them into weapons, into monsters. They're babies. They're heirs to the Kang Empire. That's all he sees. Ji-won turned to Marcus. Lock down the building. No one in or out without my personal clearance. Then get Yuna on the phone. Tell her I need a secure location, somewhere even Min-seok's rats can't reach. Marcus nodded and disappeared. Alone now. Almost. Ji-won looked at his children, really looked, and felt something crack open inside his chest. The boy had his mother's eyes, dark and deep. The girl had his mouth, serious even in sleep. What are their names? He whispered. I waited. Amara's voice was soft now, the armor slipping. I thought maybe you'd want to choose. You carried them alone, raised them alone. You choose. She shook her head. We choose together, or not at all. He stepped closer, close enough to smell her. Cocoa butter and something floral he'd never been able to name. Close enough to see the silver scar above her left eyebrow. New since he'd last touched her face. What did he do to you? The question came out raw. What you couldn't stop. She didn't say it with cruelty, just fact. The baby boy's eyes opened. Dark, unfocused, searching. Then they landed on Ji-won, and the child went completely still, studying him, deciding. Then the tiniest smile. Ji-won's knees almost buckled. Can I? He didn't know how to finish the question. Amara shifted, carefully transferring the boy into his arms. Support his head, like this. The weight was impossible. 7 pounds of absolute terror and perfect trust. His son looked up at him with eyes that didn't know what a crime lord was, didn't know about blood or power, or the price of loving the wrong person in the wrong world. Just knew. Father. Elijah, Amara said softly. I was thinking Elijah. It means my God is Yahweh, a name that remembers where we come from. And her? Sarah, short for Seraphina. It means burning one. She smiled, real this time. Because I have a feeling she's going to set your whole world on fire. Ji-won couldn't speak, couldn't do anything but stand there holding his son while his daughter slept against her mother's heart, and feel his empire, his carefully constructed fortress of fear and respect, crack open to make room for something more dangerous than any enemy. Hope. I'm not the man I was, he finally managed. When you left, I became worse. Colder. I did things. I know what you did. Amara cut him off gently. I kept track. And you still came back? I came back because you're also the man who cried at my grandmother's funeral, even though you'd never met her. The man who learned to cook jollof rice because I missed home. The man who's holding our son like he's made of starlight right now. Ji-won looked down. She was right. He was cradling Elijah like the world's most precious weapon. Maybe he was. They can't grow up in this life, he said quietly. Then change the life. You make it sound simple. I make it sound necessary. Amara shifted Sarah gently. Your uncle won't stop. You know that. He'll come for them with everything he has. Then I'll burn down everything he has first. And become exactly what he made you? The words hit like bullets. Elijah grabbed Ji-won's finger, held tight with a grip that had no idea it was holding a killer's hand. I don't know how to be a father, Ji-won admitted. I don't know how to be soft. You don't have to be soft. Amara stepped closer, her free hand finding his face. You just have to be there. The clock struck midnight. Outside, the city erupted in fireworks, gold and silver streaking across the winter sky, celebrating a new year, new beginnings, new chances to get it right this time. Inside, Kang Ji-won held his son and looked at the woman who'd disappeared to save their children from his world, and made a choice that would either redeem him or destroy everything. Marry me. Amara froze. What? Tonight. Now. Before my uncle makes his move. Marry me so no one can question their legitimacy. So they have legal protection. So you have... Stop. She pressed her fingers to his lips. Ask me because you want to, not because you have to. He shifted Elijah carefully, reached for her hand. Amara Okafor. You walked into my hell and made it feel like home. You left to protect our children from me, and came back to ask me to protect them from my demons. You're the bravest person I've ever met, and the only one I've ever loved. His voice dropped. Marry me because I can't imagine surviving another 2 years without you. Marry me because when I hold our son, I remember what it feels like to be human. Tears slipped down her face, catching gold from the chandeliers. Marry me because you want to, she whispered back. Not because you're trying to save us. I am trying to save us. But also, he leaned in, careful not to crush Elijah between them. Also because you're wearing my favorite dress, and you came back when you didn't have to, and because Sarah has your smile, and Elijah has your courage, And I want to wake up every morning for the rest of my life knowing I chose you instead of power. You can't have both? I don't want both anymore. The lie detector in her eyes searched his face. Found truth. Yes, she breathed, but on one condition. Anything. We do this your uncle's way. Big, public, impossible to undo. Make it so undoing our marriage would mean admitting weakness. Make it cost him more to fight us than to accept us. Jiwon smiled for the first time in 2 years. You've been thinking like a crime lord. I've been thinking like a mother. She kissed him softly, Sarah asleep between them, Elijah watching with wide dark eyes. There's no one more dangerous. Jiwon's penthouse had seen violence, betrayal, deals sealed in blood and broken with bullets. It had never seen a nursery. Now his war room, the space where he'd planned raids and ordered executions, held 2 white cribs, a changing table, and a mobile with stars that glowed soft blue in the darkness. 3:47 a.m. Sarah was crying. Not the angry wail of hunger or discomfort. The lonely sound of a baby who'd woken in an unfamiliar place and found the world different than when she'd closed her eyes. Jiwon stood in the doorway, watching Amara lift their daughter with practiced ease, rocking her gently while humming something low and rhythmic, a lullaby in a language he didn't speak but somehow understood. Igbo, maybe. Or Yoruba. The songs of her grandmother's grandmother, carried across oceans and centuries to soothe a half-Korean baby in a Manhattan fortress. You can come in, Amara said without turning around. She won't break if you touch her. How did you know I was here? You breathe different when you're watching us. Quieter. Like you're afraid we'll disappear if you inhale too hard. Guilty. He crossed the room, stood close enough to smell baby powder and Amara's shea butter, close enough to see the exhaustion bruising beneath her eyes. When's the last time you slept? He asked. 3 months ago. Maybe 4. She smiled, but it was thin. Babies don't care about your schedule or your sanity. Let me. You don't know, then teach me. Amara hesitated, then carefully transferred Sarah into his arms. Support her head. Keep her against your chest so she can hear your heartbeat. Rock gently. Babies like rhythm, it reminds them of the womb. Sarah's crying softened to hiccups, then to silence. She blinked up at him with eyes that were starting to shift from newborn blue to something darker, richer. His eyes. His mother's eyes. The ones he'd only seen in photographs because she'd died bringing him into this world. Hey, little dragon, he whispered. I know, everything's different. Scary, probably, but you're safe now, I promise. The baby yawned, impossibly small, and curled one tiny fist into his shirt. Amara sank into the rocking chair, watching them. You're a natural. I'm terrified. Same thing, with babies. And with you? She looked at him. Really looked. And he saw the question she wasn't asking. Are you doing this because you want a family, or because you want to win against your uncle? Both, he answered honestly. I want to beat Min-seok. I want to protect you and the twins. But also... He adjusted Sarah carefully, pressed a kiss to her forehead. Also, I held Elijah last night and felt something I thought he'd trained out of me. Something that makes terrible strategic sense, but perfect human sense. Which is, that I'd burn the entire Kang Empire to ashes before I let anyone hurt our children. Even if it meant losing everything. Even if it meant dying. That's love, Jiwon. That's madness. Same thing. Amara stood, moved to the other crib where Elijah slept on his back, one arm flung above his head in absolute trust. Your uncle raised you to believe love makes you weak, but he was wrong. Love makes you accountable. It gives you something worth protecting that's bigger than yourself. It also gives enemies leverage. So does fear. But at least love lets you sleep at night. She had a point. Sarah was asleep again, her breathing soft and even against his chest. Jiwon lowered her gently into the crib, covered her with a blanket that had elephants on it. Amara's choice, probably. Something that spoke of African plains and wide skies, and freedom his daughter might never know. Tell me about the 2 years. he said quietly. Tell me what happened after you left. Amara's shoulders tensed. Does it matter? Yes. Why? Because I need to know what I'm apologizing for. What I failed to protect you from. She was silent for a long time, staring at their sleeping children. Then, I left because your uncle sent men to my apartment. 3 of them. They didn't know I was pregnant. I was only 8 weeks, barely showing. They had orders to make it look like an accident. Her voice was flat, clinical. I fought, ran, called Marcus because I didn't know who else to trust. And he got me out. Gave me money, a new identity, a warning. Don't contact Jiwon. Don't come back. Minsok's watching everything. Jiwon's hands clenched into fists. Where did you go? Lagos first. My grandmother's sister still lived there. Then Accra when Minseok's people started asking questions in Lagos. Then here, to New York, because I figured the safest place to hide from a crime lord was in his own shadow. She laughed, but it was bitter. I worked under the table, cleaned houses, babysat other people's children while growing yours. Gave birth alone in a clinic in Queens because I couldn't risk using my real name at a hospital. Alone? A nurse held my hand. She was kind. Jiwon felt sick. While she'd been fighting for survival, for their children, he'd been... what? Expanding territory, eliminating rivals. Sitting in this penthouse drinking expensive whiskey, and pretending he didn't dream about her every night. I'm sorry, he said. Inadequate words for an unforgivable failure. You didn't know. I should have protected you better. I should have seen Minseok's move coming. Should have what? Amara turned to face him, and her eyes were fierce. Locked me in a cage for my own safety? That's his way, Jiwon. Not yours. Not the man I fell in love with. The man you fell in love with got you hunted. The man I fell in love with also gave me Elijah and Sarah. Gave me 2 years of learning who I am when I'm not living in someone else's shadow. She crossed to him, took his face in both hands. I'm not angry you couldn't protect me. I'm angry your uncle made protection necessary. There's a difference. He wanted to kiss her. Wanted to pull her close and promise things he had no business promising. Safety, peace, a future where their children grew up without bodyguards and bulletproof cars. But the truth was simpler and harder. He had no idea how to give them that life while keeping them alive. The wedding, he said instead. Tomorrow night. St. Patrick's Cathedral, full ceremony, every family in the 5 boroughs as witnesses. Minseok won't be able to move against you without declaring open war. And if he declares it anyway, then we fight. With 2 babies, with everything I have. Amara pulled back, studied his face. You're planning something. I can see it in your eyes. I'm always planning something. This is different. You're not planning to defend. You're planning to end this. Guilty again. He'd spent the hours since she'd arrived making calls, moving pieces, activating networks that had been dormant for years. Not just defense, offense. Because Kang Minseok had made one critical mistake. He'd threatened Jiwon's children. And there were rules about that. Old rules, older than the families themselves. You could kill a man's soldiers, burn his businesses, even target the man himself. But children were sacred. Touch them, and every code, every treaty, every carefully balanced power structure became void. Minseok had violated the oldest law, and Jiwon was going to use that violation to dismantle his uncle's empire piece by piece until nothing remained but ashes and regret. Don't do it, Amara whispered. Do what? Whatever you're planning that has that look in your eyes. That calculation. That willingness to sacrifice yourself. I'm not. You are. You're thinking if you go hard enough, fast enough, you can end this before Elijah and Sarah are old enough to remember. You're thinking you can be the monster so they don't have to be. You're thinking you can die a villain so they can live as heroes. She knew him too well. Would that be so wrong? He asked quietly. It would be devastating, because they don't need a dead hero, Jiwon. They need a living father, flawed, present, human. I don't know how to be that and also keep you safe. Then learn. She pressed her forehead to his. Learn the same way you learned everything else, by doing it scared, doing it wrong, doing it anyway. Outside, the city was waking, first light bleeding pink and gold across the skyline, turning windows into fire. New Year's Day, new beginning, or the first day of a war that would end everything. Jiwon looked at his sleeping children. Elijah with his mother's courage written in every breath, Sarah with his determination in the set of her tiny jaw, and made a different choice than the one Min-seok expected. Okay. Amara blinked. Okay. I'll try. I'll try to be the father they need instead of the weapon they don't. I'll try to end this without becoming the thing I'm fighting. He pulled her close, careful not to wake the babies. But I need you to promise me something too. What? If it comes down to it, if I fail, if Min-seok gets past my defenses, if everything falls apart, you take them and run. You disappear again. You don't look back. Jiwon, promise me, Amara. Promise me their lives matter more than mine, more than yours, more than us. Tears in her eyes now, silver in the dawn light. I promise, she whispered. But I'm promising something else too. I won't let it come to that. We're in this together now, all four of us. And that means you don't get to play sacrificial hero alone. He almost smiled, almost believed her. Then his phone buzzed. Marcus, probably, with morning security reports and schedules for the wedding preparations and updates on Min-seok's movements. But when he checked the screen, the message was from an unknown number. Congratulations on fatherhood. The twins are beautiful. Especially Sarah. She has your mother's eyes. It would be a shame if she never got to use them. We should talk. Uncle M. Below it, a photo. Amara and the babies leaving her queen's apartment. 3 weeks ago, based on the Christmas decorations in the background. Min-seok had known. The whole time, he'd known. And he'd let her come here. Let her walk into Jiwon's home. His life. His heart. Why? Jiwon looked at his children, his woman, his fragile new family sleeping in the room that used to plan deaths, and understood. Because this was the real torture. Not killing what Jiwon loved. Letting him love it first. Then taking it away slowly, piece by piece, while Jiwon watched helpless. What is it? Amara had seen his face change. He almost lied. Almost said nothing or work or any of the 1,000 deflections he'd perfected over the years. But she'd asked for honesty. So he showed her the message. Watched her read it. Watched her face go still and cold and absolutely terrified. He's been watching us, she breathed. The whole time. He let me come back. He wanted this. Yes. Why? Jiwon looked at his uncle's message again, at the photo of his family captured in secret, at the careful cruelty of every word, and finally understood the game. Min-seok didn't want to kill them. He wanted to break Jiwon by making him choose between love and power, family and empire, the man he was, and the monster he'd been raised to be. He wanted Jiwon to sacrifice everything that made him human, to save the people who made him want to be human in the first place. It was elegant, vicious, exactly the kind of psychological warfare Min-seok had taught him. And it might actually work. St. Patrick's Cathedral held ghosts. Jiwon felt them as he stood at the altar in a charcoal suit that cost more than most people's cars, waiting for a woman who'd already disappeared on him once. Would she do it again? Smart money said yes. His heart said please. God, no. The cathedral was full, every seat taken by representatives from the 5 boroughs' families. Russian Bratva, Italian Cosa Nostra, Chinese Triads, Irish Westies, and at the front, in the place of honor reserved for family, Kang Min-seok. 62 years old, silver hair immaculate, smile pleasant, eyes dead. He'd sent a gift that morning, antique silver rattles, Korean tradition for new babies, beautiful, expensive, probably bugged. Jiwon had had them destroyed. Min-seok had smiled and sent flowers instead. The game continued. Breathe, boss. Marcus stood beside him in the best man position, looking uncomfortable in formal wear. She'll come. You sound sure. I am. Woman who fights that hard to keep her kids safe isn't going to abandon the one move that protects them legally. Practical. True. Ji-won still couldn't breathe properly. The organ music shifted. Pachelbel's canon. Traditional. Safe. Exactly what everyone expected. Then the doors opened. And nothing was safe ever again. Amara stood silhouetted against winter light, holding both babies. No wedding dress. No veil. No flowers or tradition or any of the theater he'd expected. Just a woman in a white suit that fit like armor. Her hair natural and crowned with gold pins. Her dark skin luminous against all that pale stone and paler faces. Elijah on her left hip. Sarah on her right. Her family. Her armor. Her truth. She walked alone down the aisle. No father to give her away because her father was dead and she'd survived without him. No bridesmaids because she'd spent 2 years trusting no one. Just her and their children, coming toward him like a promise he didn't deserve but desperately needed. The crowd stirred, whispered. This wasn't how these things were done. The bride was supposed to be fragile, decorative, given from one man to another like property changing hands. Amara looked like she could burn the whole cathedral down and walk out through the smoke without looking back. Ji-won loved her so much it felt like dying. She reached the altar, met his eyes. Hi, she said quietly. Hi. His voice came out rough. You came. I said I would. You also said that 2 years ago. I know. She shifted Elijah slightly. I'm saying it again. Meaning it forever this time. The priest cleared his throat. Father Donnelly, old school, one of the few clergy in Manhattan who didn't ask questions when the Kang family needed services. Shall we begin? One moment. Amara turned to face the crowd, still holding the babies. I want everyone here to understand something before we do this. Ji-won tensed. Amara, I'm not marrying Kang Ji-won because I'm afraid. I'm not doing this for protection or money or power. Her voice carried, clear, strong, unshakable. I'm marrying him because 2 years ago, I loved him enough to disappear to save our children. And now I love him enough to stand here in front of everyone who wants to use that love against us and say, try. Silence. Even Min-seok's smile flickered. These are our children. Amara continued, lifting Elijah and Sarah slightly. Elijah Kang, Sarah Kang, they're innocent, they're precious. And they're under my protection first, their father's second, and God's always. She looked directly at Min-seok. Anyone who touches them answers to all 3, in that order. Then she turned back to Ji-won, and her expression softened. Now we can begin. Father Donnelly, looking shaken but game, opened his Bible. The ceremony was brief, traditional. Vows spoken in English and Korean, rings exchanged, his grandmother's wedding band on her finger, a new platinum band on his. I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may. Ji-won didn't wait. He kissed her carefully, mindful of the babies between them, mindful of the audience, mindful of the fact that this wasn't just a wedding, but a declaration of war against everyone who thought love made you controllable. She kissed him back, and for 5 seconds the whole world was just her mouth and the soft weight of their children and the feeling that maybe, possibly, he could have this. Family, peace, a reason to be human, then applause. Polite, careful, the sound of people who weren't sure if they were witnessing a wedding or a funeral. Maybe both. The reception was held at the plaza, because Ji-won did nothing small. 300 guests, crystal chandeliers, a string quartet playing Vivaldi while people who'd ordered murders over breakfast made small talk and pretended they were civilized. Amara kept the twins close. They'd set up a private room off the main ballroom with cribs and a nanny Ji-won had vetted personally. But she insisted on bringing them out for the first dance. People need to see them, she explained. Need to see they're real, protected, ours. So Ji-won held Elijah while Amara held Sarah, and they swayed to La Vie en Rose, sung in French, by a woman who probably charged more than most people's mortgages. His son was awake, watching everything with solemn dark eyes. "Heavy thoughts for someone who can't walk yet," Jiwon murmured. Elijah grabbed his finger, held tight. "He's deciding if he likes you," Amara said, smiling. "What's the verdict?" "Still pending. But you're doing well. He hasn't cried yet." Ringing endorsement. From a 10-month-old, it's everything. Sarah was asleep on Amara's shoulder, thumb in mouth, peaceful in the chaos. Their daughter, their miracle. The child who'd grown inside Amara while she ran, hid, survived. "Thank you," Jiwon said quietly. "For what?" "For being stronger than me. For doing what I couldn't. For coming back when you had every reason to stay gone." Amara leaned in, kissed him softly. "Thank me by keeping them safe. Keep us safe. Be the father they need, and the husband I chose. I'll try. That's all I'm asking." The song ended. Applause. Then Min Seok appeared at Jiwon's elbow like a ghost manifesting. "Beautiful ceremony," his uncle said in Korean. Pleasant voice, empty eyes. "Your mother would have been proud. My mother is dead because of this life. And yet you've brought children into it anyway." Min Seok smiled at Elijah, who stared back with unnerving intensity. "Hello, little one. You have your father's eyes. Let's hope you don't inherit his weaknesses." Amara moved Sarah away slightly, protective. "Careful, uncle," Jiwon said softly. "You're talking about my wife." "Am I?" Min Seok switched to English, his accent precise and cold. "I was talking about sentiment, attachment, the things that make powerful men make stupid choices. Like attending a wedding you weren't invited to? I'm family. I don't need invitations." His smile widened. "Besides, I wouldn't miss this for the world. My nephew, the crime lord, brought to his knees by love. It's poetic. It's human. Same thing, in our world." Marcus appeared, tension in every line of his body. "Boss, we have a situation." "What kind?" "The kind where we need to leave. Now." Jiwon's heart dropped. "What happened?" "Bomb threat. Anonymous call. NYPD is evacuating the building." Of course, Min Seok wouldn't attack directly. Too obvious, too crude. But a bomb threat at a wedding full of crime families? Perfect chaos. Perfect cover for anything. "Go," Min Seok said pleasantly. "Protect your family. I'll handle things here." That was exactly what Jiwon was afraid of. He handed Elijah to Marcus, took Sarah from Amara, and moved toward the exit with the kind of calm that came from years of practice hiding absolute terror. The ballroom erupted in controlled chaos, 300 people trying to leave simultaneously without showing fear. Outside, NYPD had cordoned off the block. Bomb squad vans, K9 units, news cameras. Jiwon's car was waiting, armored SUV, bulletproof glass, driver who'd been with him for a decade. They loaded the twins into car seats that had been installed that morning. Amara between them, hands on both carriers. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere Min Seok can't reach." "That place doesn't exist." "Then somewhere it will cost him too much to try." He gave the address to the driver. One of his safe houses, Brooklyn, Red Hook, Warehouse District. Not fancy, not comfortable, but defensible. They drove in silence, police escort clearing traffic, news helicopters tracking their route. This was the message. You're exposed, vulnerable. One well-placed attack and your family disappears. Jiwon looked at his children, Elijah fighting sleep, Sarah already dreaming, and felt the cold calculation that had kept him alive for 32 years kick in. Min Seok wanted him to choose, family or empire, love or power, human or monster. But there was a third option. Burn it all down. Destroy the system that made that choice necessary. End the Kang family entirely, so his children never had to carry its curse. "I know that look," Amara said quietly. Don't what? Whatever you're planning. Don't sacrifice yourself. Don't go noble. Don't think you can solve this by dying heroically. I'm not planning to die." You're planning something worse. You're planning to win so completely that there's nothing left. Not even you. He didn't deny it. Couldn't, because she was right. The safe house came into view. Concrete and steel, industrial, ugly, perfect. They unloaded quickly. Marcus had already secured the perimeter. 6 men, armed, loyal. Inside, Jiwon had prepared. 2 rooms converted to a nursery. Supplies, formula, diapers, everything babies needed. How long have you been planning this? Amara asked, looking around. Since the moment you walked into my penthouse holding them. I knew Min-seok would come. Knew we'd need somewhere to vanish. He set Sarah's carrier down gently. I just didn't think it would be our wedding night. Romance is dead. Romance is postponed. He pulled her close, careful not to wake the babies. When this is over, I'm taking you somewhere without bodyguards or bomb threats, or uncles who want our children dead. Somewhere with beaches and silence and nothing to do but be human for a while. Where? Wherever you want. Ghana, she said immediately. I want them to see where I'm from. Meet my grandmother's family. Learn that not all power comes from fear. Then Ghana it is. She searched his face. You're really going to do this? Walk away from everything you built? I'm going to build something better, with you. For them. And your uncle? Jiwon's expression hardened. My uncle made his choice when he sent men to kill you. When he threatened our children. When he turned this into war. So I'm going to end it. Once and for all. Not with me dying heroically. With him losing everything that makes him powerful. He kissed her forehead. I learned from the best, Amara. I learned from you. You survived 2 years by being smarter than your enemy. By disappearing where he couldn't follow. By protecting what mattered most. And what matters most? He looked at Elijah and Sarah, sleeping peacefully in this concrete fortress, trusting absolutely that the world would keep them safe. Them. Always them. Outside, night fell over Brooklyn. Inside, Kang Ji-won held his wife while their children slept, and planned the end of an empire so they could have a beginning. Human, flawed, free. Call to action. What happens when Min-seok makes his move? Will Ji-won's plan work, or will his family pay the price? Subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. This story is far from over. The warehouse smelled like oil and concrete, and the particular silence that comes before violence. Ji-won watched the monitors. 12 screens showing every angle of the perimeter. Marcus had done good work. Motion sensors, infrared, armed guards rotating every 2 hours. Still didn't feel safe enough. Behind him, Amara was putting the twins down for the night, singing softly in Igbo. The melody wound through the industrial space like a prayer, making the cold concrete feel almost warm. They're asleep, she said finally, emerging from the converted nursery. Both of them, miracle of miracles. You're good at this. I've had practice, 2 years of it. She moved to his side, studied the screens. Anything? Nothing. That's what worries me. Min-seok's waiting for you to make the first move. Then I won't disappoint him. His phone buzzed. A message from an encrypted number he recognized, one of his informants inside Min-seok's operation. Meeting tonight. Warehouse in Queens. He's calling in favors from every family, building coalition against you, says you've gone soft, says the twins make you vulnerable. They're voting in 3 hours whether to back him or stay neutral. Amara read over his shoulder. That's the play. He's isolating you, making you the threat instead of him. Smart. So what do we do? Jiwon looked at the monitors again, at the fortress he'd built around his family, then at the nursery door where his children slept, trusting him to keep them safe. We go to the meeting. Both of us? No. Just me. You stay here with them. Jiwon, this is what he wants, Amara. He wants me separated from you. Vulnerable, angry. But I'm not going there to fight. He turned to face her fully. I'm going there to abdicate. Silence. Then, what? I'm going to offer Min-seok exactly what he wants, the Kang Empire, all of it. territory, operations, connections, everything. Jiwon's voice was steady, certain. In exchange for a treaty, written, witnessed by every family, that says my children are untouchable, forever. He'll never agree. He will if I make it public. If I hand him victory in front of everyone, he can't refuse without looking weak. And if he accepts. Jiwon smiled without humor. Then I walk away. We take Elijah and Sarah to Ghana. Start over. Be nobody. Amara's eyes filled with tears. You'd give up everything? I already have everything. She's standing in front of me, sleeping in the next room. She kissed him then, hard, desperate, tasting like salt and hope and terror. Come back, she whispered against his mouth. Whatever happens, come back to us. Always. He left 20 minutes later. Marcus driving, 4 guards in the trailing vehicle. Armed, ready. The Queen's warehouse was exactly what he expected. Neutral ground, old shipping facility. Every family's cars parked outside like a summit of wolves. Jiwon walked in alone. The room fell silent. Min-suk sat at the head of the table, surrounded by representatives from every major operation in the 5 boroughs. Russian, Italian, Chinese, Irish, Colombian, all watching, waiting. Nephew, Min-suk said pleasantly, we were just discussing you. I know, that's why I'm here. Jiwon moved to the center of the room, hands visible, unarmed. I've come to make an offer. We're not interested in the Kang Empire, all of it. Every territory, every operation, every connection I've built. He looked directly at his uncle. It's yours, effective immediately. The room erupted. Min-seok's smile vanished. What game is this? No game. I'm out. Done. Finished. Jiwon's voice carried over the chaos. I want one thing in exchange. A treaty, signed by every family here, that my children, Elijah and Sarah Kang, are protected, untouchable, off limits for the rest of their lives. And if we refuse, then I burn everything. Every safe house, every account, every piece of leverage I have on anyone in this room. He pulled out his phone, showed the screen, a countdown timer. I've uploaded files to 6 different servers, personal information, financial records, evidence of crimes that would put every person here in federal prison for life. If I don't enter a code in 3 hours, it all goes public. Silence again. Different now. Dangerous. You're bluffing, someone said. Try me. Min-suk stood slowly. You'd destroy everything your father built? Everything I taught you? My father died because of this life. My mother died giving birth to me because she was alone. My father was out handling business. Jiwon's voice hardened. I won't let my children inherit that curse. I won't let them grow up thinking power matters more than family. Sentiment, Min-suk spat. Weakness. Maybe, but it's my choice. Jiwon looked around the room. You all have families, children, people you love. Ask yourselves, if someone threatened them, what wouldn't you give up? The Russian vor shifted. The Italian capo looked uncomfortable. Because Jiwon had found the one thing that transcended loyalty and fear. The universal truth that children change everything. Vote, Jiwon said quietly. Accept my offer and sign the treaty or refuse and watch everything burn. You have 2 hours and 47 minutes. He walked out, left them with the impossible choice. Outside, Marcus was waiting. Boss? Now we see if I'm a genius or an idiot. My money's on genius. Your money's biased. They drove back to the warehouse in silence. Jiwon watching the timer on his phone tick down, wondering if he'd just saved his family or signed their death warrant. Amara met him at the door, searching his face. Well? We wait. She pulled him inside, into the nursery where Elijah and Sarah slept peacefully. Unaware their father had just gambled their future on the hope that even monsters understood some things were sacred. The call came with 14 minutes left on the timer. Min-suk's voice, cold and precise. Bring the treaty to the cathedral. Midnight. Everyone will sign. Then he hung up. Ji-won looked at Amara. It worked. Or it's a trap. Probably both. But he went anyway, because some things were worth the risk. St. Patrick's Cathedral at midnight felt like a confessional for sinners who'd never learned to pray. Ji-won stood at the same altar where he'd married Amara 8 hours ago, holding a document that would either free his family or condemn them. The families filled the pews again. Same faces, different purpose. This time they weren't witnesses to a wedding. They were witnesses to an execution of the old Ji-won, the crime lord, the man Min Seok had raised to be a weapon. Father Donnelly stood nearby, looking profoundly uncomfortable. I'm not sure the church should be involved in... We're sanctifying a treaty that protects children. Ji-won interrupted. Seems appropriate. The priest couldn't argue with that. Min Seok was the last to arrive, moving down the aisle like he owned it, which, technically, he was about to. You're really doing this, his uncle said quietly. I'm really doing this. For what? 2 babies who don't even know your name yet? A woman who abandoned you? A woman who saved our children from you? Ji-won met his eyes. And yes, for them, for the chance to be something other than what you made me. Min Seok's jaw tightened. I made you powerful. You made me empty. There's a difference. The treaty was simple. 2 pages, witnessed by representatives from every family. Article 1. Kang Ji-won hereby transfers all territories, operations, assets, and organizational control to Kang Min Seok, effective immediately. Article 2. In perpetuity, Elijah Kang and Sarah Kang are declared protected persons. Any action taken against them by any signatory family shall be considered an act of war against all families. Article 3. Kang Ji-won is granted safe passage to leave the 5 boroughs with his family, never to return to operational activity. One by one the families signed. Russian Vor, Italian Capo, Chinese Dragonhead, Irish Boss, Colombian Jefe. Each signature was a nail in the coffin of Ji-won's old life, and each one was a shield around his children's future. Finally, only 2 signatures remained, Min Seok's and Ji-won's. Last chance, his uncle said. Keep the power. Send the woman and children somewhere safe. Stay who you are. I'm becoming who I should have been. Ji-won signed. Min Seok stared at the document, at his nephew's signature, at the treaty that gave him everything he'd wanted and nothing he'd expected. Then he laughed. Cold, sharp, humorless. You think this saves them? This piece of paper? I think it makes touching them cost more than you're willing to pay. Maybe, or maybe. Min Seok leaned close, voice dropping to a whisper. Maybe I sign this knowing that one day those children will come looking for their legacy. And when they do, I'll be waiting. To teach them what their father was too weak to finish. Iced down Ji-won's spine. Because Min Seok was right. Treaties protected against external threats. But what happened when the threat was internal? When Elijah and Sarah grew up knowing their father had been powerful, had walked away, had given up an empire? Would they resent him for it? Would they seek it out? Would they become exactly what he'd sacrificed everything to prevent? Sign the treaty, uncle, or don't. But know this. Ji-won straightened. If you ever approach my children, if you ever try to recruit them or manipulate them or turn them into weapons, I will come back. And I won't leave until you're buried next to my father. Min Seok smiled. There's the nephew I raised. Then he signed. It was done. The families witnessed. Father Donnelly blessed it, looking vaguely nauseated. Marcus took photographs for the record. Ji-won walked out of the cathedral a free man. Or a fool. Sometimes the line was thin. He returned to the warehouse at 2 a.m. to find Amara awake, sitting in the dark, watching the monitors. It's done, he said. She turned, eyes red from crying she'd tried to hide. We're really leaving? We're really leaving. Tomorrow. I've already booked tickets to Accra. Private jet so we don't have to deal with commercial security. From there, we drive to your grandmother's village. And then we're nobody. Then we're just a family trying to figure out how to be normal. Amara stood, crossed to him, wrapped her arms around his waist. I don't know if I know how to be normal. Me neither. We'll learn together. They stood there in the darkness, holding each other, listening to their children breathe through the baby monitor. Do you regret it? She asked. Giving up everything? Jiwon thought about it. Really thought. About power and fear and the weight of his father's legacy. About the boy he'd been before Minsuk turned him into a weapon. About Elijah and Sarah, sleeping peacefully, trusting him to choose right. No, he said finally. I don't regret it. I regret that it took this long. That you had to run. That our children were born into this mess. He pulled back to look at her face. But walking away? Choosing you? That's the first thing I've done in 10 years that actually feels right. She kissed him softly. Then let's go be nobody together. Ghana smelled like rain and red earth, and freedom Jiwon had never known existed. 3 months had passed since the treaty signing. 3 months of learning how to be human instead of dangerous. It was harder than any war he'd ever fought. They lived in Amara's grandmother's compound, a collection of buildings painted bright yellow and blue, surrounded by gardens where chickens ran and children played. Extended family everywhere. Cousins and aunts and uncles who asked questions about America, and never about what Jiwon used to do for a living. Elijah had learned to crawl, pulling himself across the red dirt with determination that reminded Jiwon of his own mother. Stubborn, unstoppable, brave. Sarah had her first tooth, celebrated by the entire village like it was a national holiday. And Jiwon? Jiwon was learning how to sleep without a gun under his pillow. You're getting better at this, Amara said, watching him feed Elijah mashed plantain while Sarah napped against his chest in a wrapper. Almost natural. Almost? You still tense every time a car goes by. Guilty. Old habits died hard. They were sitting under a mango tree in the courtyard, afternoon sun filtering through leaves, the sounds of village life surrounding them. Music, laughter, someone arguing about football scores. Normal, terrifying, perfect. Marcus called, Jiwon said. The treaty's holding. No one's made a move. Minsuk consolidated power exactly like we thought. He's the undisputed head of the Kang organization now. And us? Dead to them. Officially retired. Off the board. Amara studied his face. You miss it? No. He shifted Sarah carefully. I miss the certainty, the control, knowing exactly what every day would look like. He smiled. But I don't miss being empty. And that's what I was before. Powerful and empty. And now? Now I'm confused and exhausted and covered in baby food. He looked at his children. Elijah determined to eat everything within reach. Sarah sleeping with that absolute trust only babies have. And I've never been happier. Truth. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Encrypted. He almost didn't answer. Then curiosity won. Yes, Mr. Kang. The voice was young, female, American accented. My name is Sarah Chen. I'm an attorney with the International Children's Fund. I'm calling because we have a proposition for your wife. Go on. Mrs. Kang's story, a single mother protecting her children, surviving against impossible odds, has reached our organization. We'd like to offer her a position as an advocate for women in similar situations, particularly immigrant women fleeing domestic violence or organized crime. Jiwon looked at Amara, who was watching him with curious eyes. I'll ask her, he said. But I should tell you, we're not planning to return to the United States. We have international offices, including one in Accra. The position would be remote, flexible, focused on using her experience to help others. He thanked her, hung up, relayed the conversation. Amara was quiet for a long moment. Then, would it be safe? Safer than what we left. You'd be protected by an international organization. No connection to my old life, but still public, still visible. Yes. She looked at their children, at the village surrounding them, at the life they'd built from ashes. I want to do it, she said quietly, not despite what happened. Because of it. Because I survived. And maybe my surviving can help someone else survive. Jiwon felt pride swell in his chest. You're remarkable. I'm practical. Survival isn't worth much if you don't use it for something. So Amara became an advocate, and Jiwon became a father. Full-time, no empire to run, no enemies to manage. Just diapers and midnight feedings and learning that children don't care how powerful you used to be. They only care if you show up. Elijah took his first steps at 14 months, running straight into Jiwon's arms like he'd been waiting his whole life for that moment. Sarah said her first word, Dada, while Jiwon was covered in spit-up and exhaustion and wondering how people did this without bodyguards. And slowly, month by month, Jiwon felt the armor he'd worn for decades crack and fall away. He laughed more, slept better, stopped checking windows for threats, became human. 1 year after leaving New York, they were sitting under the same mango tree when Amara's phone rang. She answered, listened, then went very still. What is it? Jiwon asked. Your uncle. He's dead. The world tilted. How? Heart attack, 2 days ago. Marcus said it was natural. He'd had heart problems for years, apparently. Refused treatment. Jiwon should have felt something. Relief. Vindication. Something. Instead, nothing. Just the awareness that the man who'd raised him, controlled him, threatened everything he loved, was gone. The families want to know if you're coming back, Amara said softly. For the funeral. They're saying with Minsuk gone, the power vacuum is... No. Jiwon? No. He looked at Elijah and Sarah playing in the dirt, building towers of nothing and everything. I'm not going back. Not for a funeral. Not for power. Not ever. They'll fight over the territory. It could get bloody. Let it. That's not my world anymore. Amara searched his face. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. He pulled her close, kissed her forehead. We built something better here. Love instead of fear. Family instead of empire. I'm not trading that for anything. She leaned into him, watching their children play. What do we tell them? She asked. When they're older, when they ask about their legacy. Jiwon thought about it. About his father, killed for power. About his mother, dead in childbirth while his father handled business. About Minseok, raising him to be a weapon. About the cycle of violence that had consumed 4 generations of Kang men. We tell them the truth, he said finally. That their grandfather and great-uncle built an empire on fear. That their father inherited it, ran it, then walked away. And that they get to choose something different. What if they choose the empire? Then we love them anyway. But we don't make it easy. We show them every day that there's more to power than fear. That real strength is vulnerability. That the empire we built here, love, family, purpose, is worth more than all the territory in the 5 boroughs. Amara smiled. You've become a philosopher. I've become a father. Same thing. Sarah toddled over, demanding to be picked up. Jiwon obliged, lifting his daughter into the air, her laughter bright and perfect, and completely unaware that her father used to be someone people feared. And that was exactly how he wanted it. 5 years later, Elijah started school. Sarah learned to read. Amara's organization grew, helping thousands of women escape impossible situations. And Jiwon? Jiwon taught his children how to swim in the ocean, how to speak Korean and Igbo, how to cook jollof rice and kimchi. He never touched a gun again, never looked back, just forward, always forward, toward the family he'd chosen over an empire, toward the life he'd fought for, toward love that didn't require fear to exist. And every night, when he put his children to bed, he whispered the same thing. You're safe, you're loved, and you're free to be whoever you want to be. No legacy but that, no empire but family, no king but a father who chose them over everything. The end.